Our next guest is joining us to share details on the Federation's History and Heritage Month celebrations under the theme celebrating 400 years of ancestral creativity and ingenuity. Welcome, Mr. Percy Hanley, head of the Brimstone Hill History and Heritage Society. Good morning, Mr. Hanley, and welcome back to Good Morning SKN.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here once again.
Our pleasure having you.
Just a small correction. It's not the Brimstone Hill History and Heritage Society. I'm from the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society.
Oh.
But we are the main leaders in the History and Heritage Committee, which is a committee comprised of a number of organizations that assist in celebrating this event. If I may, I'll give you a list of some of those people who are involved. It's the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society, the St. Christopher National Trust, where the museum is, the Department of Culture, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, the History Club of the CFB College, the Charles Halbert Public Library, and the University of the West Indies Open Campus, and other interested individuals who love history and heritage, and so they all come together to form a committee to put together the activities for this month.
Prior to us beginning the show, I asked you if you were always interested in history.
Actually, no. When I was in school, I hated history because it was boring, but I don't think it was boring from a point of view of the subject matter. It was boring from the delivery of the teacher who taught it, which taught me a great lesson in terms of when you're teaching people, make it interesting. If it's not interesting, people are going to be turned off. But as I grew older and started to see what history really meant, you know, you saw monuments, you saw things, and everything related back to something. And it told a story of where we came from. And therefore, when you know that, it somehow broadens your mind into exactly where we are, why we are, and perhaps help to plan and chart the future as we move forward.
All right, so in that vein, it's a good time to focus on the theme for this year's celebration. Celebrating 400 years of ancestral creativity and ingenuity. What does that mean to you?
Well, the theme really remembers the fact that St. Kitts was settled by the British in 1623, that's 400 years ago. However, we are not celebrating 400 years of colonization. What we are doing is celebrating 400 years of our achievements over that period of time. So we want to celebrate and recognize all the things that we have not only gone through, there were difficulties, there were hard times, but we want to also look forward and back at all the things that we have come through and what we have achieved in that period of time.
That's a great distinction that you make.
Yes.
Between colonization and our achievements.
That's right.
It's notable.
Can we speak on the activities that you have for the month? Yesterday, well, you started off with a church service, so you can tell us.
Yeah, well, actually, it started on the 1st when we had an address by Minister Duggins. He made an address to the nation via SKNIS, where he addressed the topic and gave listeners and viewers an idea of what history and heritage is, what it means, and the things that we need to celebrate in terms of our ingenuity and creativity over that period of time. And then on Sunday gone, the 5th, we had a church service at the St. George's Anglican Church, where, as usual, we like to bring some thanks and praise to the fact that we have come this far and invoke God's blessing in terms of our movement forward. So we had the church service. The next event that came on stream happened actually yesterday, where we had a launch of a book display at the Charles Halbert Public Library, one of our collaborators also. The librarian there has prepared a nice display of books that are related to the topic, things about our culture, our heritage, about our history. about our politics, about all our developments over that period of time, things that we have looked at, our plants, the usefulness, our industries, the achievements of individuals and so on, and all the books that are especially locally written and some regionally written that address those, the theme. And then she also has a few snippets that she has pulled out and put also on display to help to focus you on exactly what the topic means and how to address it, and showing some of the things that we have come through and achieved over that period of time.
Yeah.
So the next one up is going to be, well, on the 22nd, but we haven't honed down the day yet. Later on, we will advise the public of exactly what day has been selected. But the Sir Probin Innis Memorial Lecture is one of our feature events. It was named the Sir Probin Innis Lecture because Sir Probin Innis was was the founding member of the History and Heritage activities. Okay. And so we, at his passing in 2017, we decided to rename it. Instead of the History and Heritage Lecture, we renamed it the Sir Probin Innis Memorial Lecture to commemorate his involvement in this. So that comes up on, it's going to be by Zoom anyway, because there are a few logistics which we would not be able to make it an in-person thing as we usually do. Okay. So it will be by Zoom, but we'll advise the public of the details of that as it draws a little closer. Then we also have a cultural fair and exhibition. This put on by another of our collaborators, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College History Club, and they will be putting together a nice display of, they do it each history and heritage, and it's always very interesting. They find lots of old artifacts, things that people used in those old days, you know, the pots, the pans, the chamber pots, the sewing machines, the type of stuff they used to wear, the type of things they used to cook, and then also on display some of the things that are local cuisine. And they actually prepare some food and sell it there so that you can have a taste of some of those things made by the students. You know, so it's going to be very interesting. And then on the 25th of February, we'll have the History and Heritage Hike. The History and Heritage Hike usually tries to take you on a nice walk to places of interest, especially with some historical connection and or history or heritage connection. And this year, we have chosen the Brimstone Hill Fortress. So I'm sure many persons have, but I'm also sure many persons have not been to Brimstone Hill. A little shame. But at the same time, what I want to do is invite everyone to try and come to this. You'll have to register at the National Trust. They again are one of our collaborators, and they're putting this one together, as they usually do. Okay. So they will arrange this hike. You'll be picked up at the museum in Bastere at 5:30 in the morning, because the intention is to reach down there for 6 to get started in the cool of the morning to get the hike on the way. Okay. And I promise you, it's going to be interesting, because not only will you get lots of information that you probably never heard about Brimstone Hill, and about our flora, and about our fauna, which we'll all pass on the way, but interestingly, you'll see Brimstone Hill like you never saw it before. Because from a hike perspective, we're going to take you through trails that nobody usually uses at all. And therefore, you're going to see Brimstone Hill in a totally different light.
That's quite interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Me yet. You got me. I like that.
So we expect people to come on out and take part in that. And then on the 26th, which is a Sunday, we have the Senior Citizens Social. This is put together by the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities. Okay. Another one of our collaborators. And they usually have this exciting affair for our senior citizens. They select senior citizens from around the island, and they come to our headquarters at Taylor's Range, the Matheson House, we call it. And we have an affair there for them where we provide entertainment. We have entertainers who will sing for them, act, read poetry, do different things and so on, give jokes and so on. And after the performers act or during a break in that, the seniors now get a chance to participate. They now will present their own poems, their songs, their jokes, little snippets of history and from when they were young and when they were growing up. And they absolutely love that. They look forward to this. Right now, I've heard from the ministry that there are people calling in. I need a ticket to this event. They want to come. These seniors, they really look forward to this event. And we want to make sure we put together a very nice program for them. They also get some refreshment, food, drink, and so on, also provided by the ministry. And therefore, it promises to be a very good event.
I love the way that you've thought of including them so that nobody feels left out. And they should not, because they've contributed to our development so much over time.
And we help them to reminisce also about their time and their youth and so on and so on. And they absolutely love it. But of course, we spread the whole gambit, because not only are we making sure that we look after the elderly, but we also have the youth. So we have a primary schools quiz that we bring in the very young, where all the primary schools will get together. And this again is assisted by the Ministry of Education, another one of our collaborators. And they bring all the primary schools together for a series of competitions on social studies, which involves history, which involves heritage, which involves geography, and so on and so on. And they will compete in 3 stages. There's the preliminaries, where you establish who's going to go to a semi-final round. And then the semi-final round chooses the last 4 schools to go to the final round, which will take place on the 28th of February, Tuesday, 20th of February.
So just to be specific, the primary schools include primary schools in Nevis, public and private as well?
We focus on St. Kitts.
You focus on St. Kitts.
Yes. Incidentally, Nevis, as you realize, is one of our collaborators in this Nevis Historical and Cultural Society. But this year they have a few challenges which have caused them not to be able to participate as fully as they would like. But normally they try to mirror some of the events that we have here over in Nevis. But this year they have a few challenges which keep them out. So, but hopefully next year they'll be back strong and ready. Okay? But this year we focus mostly on St. Kitts. Yeah. And then the final thing is, again, with the youth, we go to the older youth, to the tertiary level, where there's a Back to Roots pageant, which again, one of our collaborators, the CFB College, will put together, where they get the youths to put on a show of cultural display and heritage. And so that will come off, however, in March. A little spill over, but for time to organize it, they're putting it on in March. And so that's basically the events that we're having for the month of activities.
Again, you're absolutely right. Spreading that gambit. When I think of culture, one of the things that concerns me is that as we progress, as we develop, we tend to not be linked as much to the past.
Yes.
And so things like this, months like this, when you get together and collaborate with so many entities, so many different people, it says to me that there are linkages that could be made, and I'm glad that you're making them. Of what significance is this month to you personally?
Well, I guess as the chair of the committee, I have an interest in it because of my love for history, my love for culture, my love for heritage. And so I find myself involved in these things just out of interest. I mean, there's absolutely no financial or other gain for me from it, just a matter of interest, more like a passion than anything else. And so I'm driven by that. And of course, I like to follow in the footsteps of Sir Probin. Big shoes to follow, but he actually started this month of activities because he found that people weren't paying, as you said, a lot of interest in history, heritage, culture, and so on and so on. And he thought that putting together something like this each year will help to raise their awareness. And so that's the purpose that we are trying to achieve.
Well, it seems like you are going a long way to ensuring that we're achieving that purpose, and we're grateful for all of your work. Mr. Percy Hanley, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you also.
You're very welcome.
And we just, of course, would like to encourage everyone to make sure that you attend as many of these functions. We will be airing them in terms of advertising and posters on Facebook and on the media. So look out for these events and join us.